Good afternoon. Welcome to the June meeting of the St. Tammany Parish Board of Adjustment. You're all welcome to this meeting. Madam Secretary, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Ballantyne from Mandeville.
Here.
Mrs. Thomas from Mandeville. Here. Mr. Daly from Covington. Mr. Blosh from Mandeville.
Here.
Mr. Spees from Lacombe.
Here.
And Mr. Swindell from Covington.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, we have a quorum.
Thank you. Everyone out there, please silence your phones, and I will do the same because I am the worst culprit of that. All silence your phones, all electronic devices. Any appeals to the decision of this board should be directed to the 22nd Judicial Court. Speaker cards are available to fill out and turn into the staff. For the public speaking, 10 minutes will be allowed for the case and 10 minutes for rebuttal, or 10 minutes for the opposition position. And then after that, 5 minutes again for the case and any rebuttal after that. After your case is heard, we ask that all you would quietly leave the building so we can continue on and get all the cases done. We have a busy afternoon. We've got 9 cases, and we will do that. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes?
Yes, sir.
Any comments on the minutes? I'll entertain a motion.
I move to accept the minutes as presented.
Got a motion by Ms. Thomas to accept the minutes. How about a second?
I'll second that.
A second by Mr. Brian Swindell. And pardon me, I'd like to recognize Mr. Brian Swindell over here. He is, will be voting today as a regular member. The minutes are approved, so we will go. Oh, I'm sorry. Please vote with your screen.
Who seconded them? Mr. Swindell?
Yes. Second, Mr. Swindell.
Motion carries.
Very good. Okay, we'll go to our next, or the first case. This is BOA case number 2817. This is a request by applicant in an 8C2 highway commercial zoning district for a waiver of the required street planting buffer to provide additional parking spaces. The property is located at 240 Highway 22 East in Madisonville. The applicant and representative is Empastado Sellers, Micah Empastado. Staff comments, please.
The objective of the request is to eliminate the required street planting area and the required number of trees and shrub and provide 8 additional parking spaces for the customers dining at the restaurant. While the minimum required number of parking spaces is provided on the site, there's no objection to the request, considering that the additional spaces will prevent parking within the highway right-of-way, which causes safety concerns for the pedestrian and the vehicles. The configuration of the property prevents the addition of parking spaces elsewhere within the site. Should the board be in favor of the request, it should be subject to providing a revised landscape plan showing the required number of shrubs, the species, and the shrubs shall be planted before the completion of the project. Payment to the tree bank for the required 12 Class A and 12 Class B trees. Submit the required site plan showing the correct orientation of the circulation with arrows and apply for a site work permit.
Please state your name and address and your, go ahead.
Thank you. My name is Robert Harvey. I'm an attorney. My address is 600 North Carrollton in New Orleans. I am the representing party for Mr. Empastado and Ms. Mika Empastado, the owners of the Sellers Restaurant. We were supposed to be here last month, and I want to thank you because we were told it was 6 o'clock, and we started over here. We'd have been a little late. I've been representing not only my clients but my relatives in this case. Joe Impostado has been in business for over 50 years, 43 years in New Orleans and 9 years over here with his daughter, Amika Ann. And what we're seeking today is additional parking. Impostado's has 20 employees that work there. It grew from one concept to a restaurant concept. If you've had a chance to eat there, you've got to know the food is terrific. And what we need, with the pandemic coming along, that hurt a lot of businesses, and no exception for Impostado Cellars. And so we had parking at a location there next door before the pandemic, and afterwards it was sold, and the new owners would not allow any additional parking. So now people park on the streets. And we think what we have, we've hired Urban Systems to design this, and we think we have an excellent design. Joe. I don't know, can you see this? I tried to get it big enough so everyone can see it. This is the restaurant, and all of this in the white area is existing parking. The green area is from here to the street, and what we're proposing to do, presently the cars enter here, park, and exit to the right side of the board, or left side of the board. What's been designed by Urban Systems is to come in, and at this point, there's a stretch along the front with additional parking. It's really, I think, 8 to 10 parking spots, enough for cars to get in and out. There's a little section here we can't use because of some plumbing, which will have some shrubbery, and of course we have to deal with the sign, which is all built into our plans. What will happen is that this will increase the amount of spaces for the restaurant and give us that additional revenue, tax revenue, and revenue for the restaurant that was suffered with the pandemic and the losses therefrom. I would like to answer any questions that, and by the way, there'll be there'll be shrubbery along this side of the road, which will shield it from the highways.
You're done, sir?
That's it.
Ms. Thomas, I think, has a question. I'll call on Ms. Thomas.
I agree, your food's excellent, so thank you for that. I'm a little confused by what is it that you're taking out exactly? What?
There's nothing, this is just all green space right now.
Okay,
And we're asking that we can be allowed to use this green space to put the additional parking here and this road section. If you've been out to Cellars, Miss Impostado and Mr. Impostado, they don't do anything halfway. It's done perfect, and it's done by design. As I said, we have Urban Systems that's designed this, and in the construction, this would be all cement. All of the shrubbery, all of the signs would be appropriate, and it would still be coming in cars, going one way and going out the other way.
okay. So you're not removing any trees along the sides or in the back?
No,
we're talking about
if we
the
remove
front.
anything, we're going to replace it.
Okay.
I mean, in the construction, something may go, but they plan to place all the shrubbery that's required.
All right, thank you.
Call on Mr. Spees.
Yes, sir. I noticed that you've already cut all the trees in where you want to have the parking area. You've already cut them down, right?
That was hurricane related.
Okay. That's what I wanted to know.
Mr. Swindell, please.
Not that it matters if the distances are the same, but the way you show the angled parking and the green space there, that's not reflected the same on the drawing that we have in the file from Urban Systems. What this drawing shows is parallel parking along the concrete there. And
This way,
yeah. I mean, what you have on the concept there shows angled parking. I really don't care whether it's one way or the other, as long as the distance from the street to the end of the green space is the same.
and initially, we were going to do that. We just thought it would be a little more difficult for someone to come in and then have to back in or go forward. And once the car spots were filled, that seemed to be a problem a little bit.
So with this arrangement you've got shown, I mean, the arrangement that we have shows essentially 8 additional spots. The way you show it there is probably more than 8.
Well,
But-
we can't use these 2 spots
Right.
because there's a plumbing and electrical instruments in this part. So we would get 8 to 10 spots, maybe 8 or 9 rather, because we wouldn't be using this either.
Okay, so the distance from the street in that concept you've shown there to what would, I would assume be a curb on the drive.
This is, I
What-
believe, 18 feet to here.
Okay, and what is it on, this is the concept that we have in the file that shows those 8
It's the
spots.
same, it's the same distance.
Okay,
Because you have to pull that, you have to enter this roadway to get into the parking spot.
no problem here then. I'm good.
Yeah, basically, I had the same concerns and questions about that in terms of the green space, if it was going to be an expansion of that. So as I'm seeing it, we are still going to provide some green space, shrubbery, replanting of trees, that sort of thing along
Yes, sir.
that area in the front,
Yes, sir.
correct? Okay, okay,
It's going to look really nice when we finish.
okay, thank you.
I'm going to recognize myself, if it please the board. One of the questions I had when I reviewed this case was, why don't you just purchase some additional land, right here on either side, get all the parking spaces you want? And somebody else bought that. My question kind of is, why didn't you purchase some land? You wouldn't have had this problem.
I think it was a lot of land next door. We were renting space there until they sold it, and then they didn't want our customers to park there. So it was just a little too much to buy for this much space, much parking that we needed. And I apologize, I wish we could. I think they bought it, they're tearing it up now, and they're going to build what are they building? Yeah. So they're building on the whole piece of property now, and it was bought by someone else. I'm not sure how much land that is, but
Okay.
it's more than we needed.
And then I had another question, and I think it's been answered. My question was going to be, what's the trade-off? How many trees for 8 parking spaces? But you really didn't. The
Well-
trees were taken out by,
By the hurricane,
yeah.
and what we propose to do, once this road is in, we're going to line this with shrubbery along here, so it's actually protected from view of the highway, and plant whatever trees that, I guess when you hire your landscaper, he'll design it so that it's acceptable to the council.
Okay. Any other board members have any other further questions? Please step back. Is there any opposition to this case? Anyone here in the audience opposed to this? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the variance as requested.
Mr. Swindell made a motion to approve the request for variance. Do I hear a second?
Just a moment. So we're approving based on a revised plan will have to be submitted because it's not the same. And are you approving subject to all the conditions that are listed on the staff report?
Yes.
Okay.
Then I would second them.
Have a motion and a second by Mr. Blash. Any other discussion or comments? Please vote with your screen.
Motion carries.
Motion carried. Thank you. Next case.
Thank you, members.
Here we go. Next case is a BOA case number 2819. This is a request by applicant in an A3 suburban zoning district for an after-the-fact request to reduce a required 50-foot no-cut buffer to 5 feet on the west side of the property and replant with a new vegetative buffer. The property is located at 515 and 519 Brewster Road in Madisonville, Louisiana. The applicant is Lee Robinson and John Martinez. Staff comments, please.
As per the Unified Development Code, properties that are 3 acres or larger are required to maintain a 50-foot no-cut buffer along the interior side property lines, the rear property line, and a 25-foot no-cut buffer along the street property line. This request is for and after the fact request to reduce the required 50-foot no-cut buffer on the west side of the property and replant with a new vegetative buffer. Staff would like to note the following information, which results in the reduction of the total acreage for both parcels. There was no construction permitted within the 100-foot power line right-of-way located along the eastern side of these parcels, and a pond that was permitted by the BOA is crossing the middle property line and proposed to be provided to meet drainage requirements. Since the last BOA meeting that we had, the applicant has submitted 3 proposals to support their variance request, which include the following. Number 1 is a landscape plan with the installation of non-invasive golden goddess clumping bamboo along the western boundary of the flagpole lot of A2 to create natural privacy barrier and installation of crepe myrtles in the interior of lots 1 and 2. Number 2 is the installation of non-invasive golden goddess bamboo multiplex clumping bamboo along the western boundary of flagpole lot A2 to create a natural privacy barrier and installation of a mixture of live oaks and hardwoods in the interior of lots A1 and A2. Number 3 is the installation of code-compliant wood pine fence along the western boundary of the private drive of the flagpole lot. You can find these 3 proposals in the packet that was provided to you prior to this meeting. Should the board be in favor of the request, it should be subject to the applicant submitting a landscape plan showing the proposed replanting and the timeline to get that done.
Thank you. I have a speaking request from Miss Lara Jensen. Please come forward, state your name and your address.
Laura Jensen for applicants Lee Robinson and John Martinez. I'm an attorney. My address is 1 Galleria Boulevard, Suite 1900. It's Metairie, Louisiana, 7001.
Proceed.
Okay, thank you. At issue right now is 2 limited buffer zones on the western boundary of A1 and the southwest corner of A2. We submitted a letter of clarification with respect to this variance request yesterday with some exhibits. And essentially a summary of our position. It's pretty simple, that there are essentially 3, well, the board has the power to grant the variance request when 1 or more factors are present. And we contend that there are 3 factors present that warrant the variance request. 1 is a servitude on the eastern boundary of the properties. 2 is the shape of the lot such that the left side, the western boundary, is constrained. And then we also have some internal things going on that create hardships. They basically, what they do is they reduce the buildable space of each lot to less than 3 acres such that the buffer zone would not be required under the code, or alternatively, to maintain these 2 buffer zones would effectively render the lots unbuildable. Now, with respect to the first point, the servitude, I attached with my letter Exhibit 1, which was a survey of the property. If you look at that survey, you'll see the property itself, it was actually 1 parcel when it was originally purchased. It's a very narrow, long parcel. It's not wide at all. On the eastern boundary of that parcel is a 100-foot intergy servitude that encroaches upon each lot. And you'll see on the survey, each lot says, well, it's 3 or more acres. That's a little bit misleading because that's not the case. When you consider the 100-foot servitude, it actually reduces the buildable acreage under both lots to more than likely less than 3 acres. Number 2, I'm sorry, you have a question?
Well, of course it's less than 3 acres. I was going to ask you, how much is it?
I don't have exact numbers, but it is, I mean, if you're right on the border of 3 acres, obviously a 100-foot servitude is going to reduce it. Now let's take that servitude, and on the eastern boundary, we have the long, lengthy, narrow lot, and you have an intergy servitude here on the eastern boundary. Let's look at the west side of the property. Now, when they, like I said, when they originally bought the parcel, it was 1 parcel. They subdivided it into 2 parcels, and you can see on the survey it was subdivided on February 25th. The only way to configure this for the 2 lots is to create this flagpole lot, and the pole part of the flag, if you look at the A2 forms a flagpole here, and then A1 is in the upper right corner of this flagpole. the only way to access both lots is to make the pole a private drive. That's the only way you're going to access them. So in that event, it's treated as a private drive, and no buffer zone is required along the western boundary of that private drive. Okay, so now what we have is two things going on. You have, on the eastern side, you have the servitude. On the western side, you have a private drive. That is basically taking a narrow lot and encroaching upon it and making it more narrow. Now, we also have, leads me to my third point, we have some other interior things going on that create some hardships. So if you look at the survey again, you see the private drive terminates at the boundary line between A1 and A2. What happened is the BOA or the parish issued a permit for them to install a pond at that location. And if you look at Exhibit 3, we have a sketch of the pond on the survey, so for visual purposes. So here's Exhibit 3, and you can see where the pond is in red here in the middle of the lot. So now let's focus on A2. This is one of the problems created by the pond. The private drive at this point terminates where the pond is located. So to create a driveway to lot A2 would basically intersect with this pond. What they would like to do is have the private drive extend further south to put the driveway more towards the south of the lot to avoid this conflict with the pond. To do that would be required to take out this buffer zone here at the southwest corner. Now you say, move the lot, move the house pad. Why do we, yeah. Well, the problem with that idea is that you can't. The thing is, if you move, you can't move it east because you have a 100-foot servitude. You can't really move it south very much because of a southern boundary. You can't move it north because you have a northern boundary line with A1 and you have a pond. And of course, you can't move it to the west because you have the western boundary line. It's kind of locked in. You really can't do much with it. So in addition to the pond, they also got a permit to install a culvert. And if you look at Exhibit 4D, which I'll hold up here, the culvert, it's a the private access road is about roughly 35 feet, if I'm not mistaken. The culvert extends about 48 feet over the private drive. So when you come in from Brewster Road and you come over that culvert, it's going to put the drive right into the middle of the buffer zone on this western boundary of A1. And you say, again, move the house pad on A1. Well, we can't do that because we have a servitude to the west, we have a road to the north, we have a pond and a southern border to the south, and you have the private access road. Now, in addition to the culvert, we recently learned that Entergy is going to come in and put their electrical poles in, and they're going to put it on the eastern side of this private drive. It's going to intersect with the buffer zone here and the buffer zone here, basically rendering those buffer zones meaningless when the Entergy gets through cutting them out for the poles. Lastly, we want to, if you see Exhibit 5, it's a plot plan for A1. If you maintain the buffer zone on A1, you see here's a plot plan. The buffer zone would be roughly here.
I can't see any.
Okay, no problem. I can hand it to you if you'd like to see it. It should be in your exhibits.
Just continue.
Sure.
We don't have it.
I'm happy to share it if you want it.
It's right here.
Okay, she's got it.
Okay. We made copies as well. So.
Sure, no problem. But just roughly speaking, you can see from that the buffer zone would basically be within 25 feet of the house. And it would expose the house to falling trees with every major storm or hurricane. And again, we can't relocate the house because of all the boundaries and encroachments going on. It's essentially locked in. So the net effect of all this, you can see it's a very constrained, narrow lot and we show some pictures of it at Exhibit 6 if you get a chance. I won't take the time with it. But it's a very constrained lot. There's a very limited amount of space to work with. That's why we want the buffer zones removed, or they were removed, and we're asking for a variance for them. Now, because otherwise the lots are going to be unbuildable because they can't move the house pads anywhere to accommodate these buffer zones. Now, with that said, to support the variance request, and I'll be happy to answer your questions now, or you want me to wait?
Keep going.
Okay. So to support the variance request, we did, at the board's request, submit 3 landscaping proposals. We understand Mr. Ellis has opposed the variance request, and one of the proposals, we have 2 landscaping proposals and 1 proposal to build a fence. Please note, and those landscaping proposals are attached as exhibits to the letter that we sent in. Please note that both proposals involve taking, even though we're not required to replant the western perimeter of the access road, we're willing to do so anyway. We'll do the entire western perimeter with a non-invasive golden clumping bamboo. That means it's not going to take over, but it will fill in to provide a natural barrier. In addition, one landscaping proposal involves installation of crepe myrtle on the interior lots. The other landscaping proposal involves live oaks and hardwoods on the interior lots. We believe that these proposals, if you take the natural barrier plus the trees plus the pond, is in keeping with the environment, the natural aesthetics of the environment. Alternatively, the third proposal was installation of a pine fence on that entire western boundary with Mr. Ellis to restore any privacy that might have been removed because of the buffer zones. Lastly, we understand that the board wanted us to try to reach a resolution with Mr. Ellis. I will say that we tried. We were unable to reach a resolution with him. All of these proposals have been discussed with him or presented to him. The two landscaping proposals were submitted to him. He's the one that suggested the fence, but unfortunately he had too many conditions with the fence that we couldn't agree to. With that said, we are willing, my clients are still willing to work with him or work with the board to reach a resolution in order to build these lots. Thank you very much.
I recommend you just take the opposition and then we'll go back to questions.
Oh, I'm sorry. Do you have questions?
I'm going to go ahead and request the opposition. I'm going to give them time to speak then we'll come back to the questions. If that pleases the board, everybody's nodding, please step back. The opposition now has 10 minutes to present your case. Please come forward, state your name and address.
Thank you. My name is John Forrester. I'm an attorney representing Mr. James Ellis. My address is 6601 Florida Lee Drive in New Orleans, Louisiana. I did provide all of our exhibits and our paper via email. Last time we were here, I believe some of the council members didn't have easy access to the exhibits. I've brought packets for everyone if they would like. I also planning on showing you here, but I have them here if I could just pass them out for use. And what I want to go into is some of the backstory briefly, and then I'll hit the 5 points. Since we were here previous May 3rd hearing, I believe two of the council members had indicated after hearing about all the misrepresentation intent to reject this variance. So I want to go through some of that now that we've got some additional council members here at this meeting. This is an after-the-fact variance. The western side of these two lots in the buffer zone that was cleared out consists of approximately an acre of treed land that removed the privacy that Mr. Ellis once enjoyed. I want you to, if I can, show you the fact that this was a variance that was known to have been in existence and it was cut down purposefully. You can look at the application permits that were signed by both of the parties requesting the variance, initialed every single page that clearly stated that the variance was to remain intact. Then you can look at the permit itself that clearly showed that the variance was to remain intact. If that was not enough, you could look at the clearing that was actually done by those parties requesting the variance today. And you can see that what was done during the clearing, the first step was done properly. They left the buffer zone. And you can look at their application, which clearly shows, and I've highlighted this, this is the A1 and this is A2. A2 has a line, 50 no-cut buffers. 50 no-cut buffers all around this southern part of the flag lot, where buffers are required the entire way of the area south of that access lot. That has to remain. It sounds like they're not even dealing with that, but that entire area south of the access lot is required to have a buffer zone remain. And you can look at the statute, or the zone ordinance, section 125-88, which deals explicitly with flag lots, states that all other zoning requirements apply, such as buffers. So I don't even know if they're trying to sneak past something without even requesting a variance on that issue, but that's something that appeared unclear at the last hearing, that they've gone away and cut, and they're not even asking to replace that 50-foot buffer all the way up to where that pond exists on the southern flag lot. Now, if you look at the next page, council members, you can see here's lot A1, the front lot. The buffers are clearly marked out and highlighted on their application for this variance and for the clearing cut permit. They knew this whole time. Not only did my client James Ellis tell them, but they applied to leave the buffers. Then if you look at the Google Maps, they went and cleared cut as they should have done properly, and then said, nope, go ahead and take down the whole thing. And I've submitted pictures for this hearing that shows that they've clear cut the entire lot. And so they knew, you can tell by their clear cutting that they knew. They knew when they applied for it, they knew when they did the clear cutting, they knew when they got the permit, and they misrepresented to the board that last time they were here, stating they didn't know. They also made misrepresentations regarding the neighbors that they supposedly told and gave their contact information to. So I went to Mr. Ellis and said, well, did they contact the other neighbors? And they didn't. And what I have is letters now from neighbors on the north, south, and now Mr. Ellis has opposed this from the beginning. And we have letters that we've attached from David and Susie Miller, who are adjacent on the north of the property, saying that in their narrative asking for a variance, they state, this is the parties asking for their variance, we also reached out to the surrounding neighbors and provided our contact info to them to ensure they had a way to reach us throughout the development. We have never been given the contact information of the owners of those lots across from us on 515 and 519 Brewster. We have also not been given any information from them concerning their development. We have been annoyed and inconvenienced over the last several months by the unnecessary beeping and banging from the clearing of land on weekends and late afternoons. We strongly oppose the removal of the buffer zone on both sides of the lots and the rear of the southern lots. Those buffer zones should be fully replanted on both lots, and a variance should not be given. That's the neighbor to the front. You know Mr. Ellis opposed this as the neighbor to the west. And then we have a letter from Mr. Anthony Tolley to the south. Those are all the neighbors around, and they all, you can read theirs. I strongly oppose the removal of the buffer zones on the sides of both of the lots and the rear of the southern lot. The buffer zone should be fully replanted on both lots, and a variance should not be given. So we've got all of the neighbors around this property owner where the property owners misrepresented that they went to them and gave them the contact information. Everyone's fine with it. So now we're coming again to show you that was a false statement made before this honorable board on May 3rd. And they knew it. And that's the first point that we get to. This was a knowing violation. This was a knowing violation. And then they try to use the pond as an excuse. They asked for that pond, and now they're going to use it to their benefit to say they have no room. These right-of-ways didn't come into existence after the fact. Mr. Ellis told them about them. He looked at buying that property and decided not to because of those issues, told them the same thing. They went ahead. Now they're in front of you after the fact if they cleared over an acre of land and they want to put some invasive bamboo along his property. We've already said that's not sufficient. He doesn't not want invasive bamboo growing across his property. We weren't submitted the plans, but I understand there's the fence proposal. I haven't seen that. And then there's a few hardwoods they want to plant somewhere around the property. I don't think that's in the buffer zone. I don't think they've given you any details on that. And it's just another way to get around this board to get a variance to get out of here and do whatever they want. They've already done it with the pond variance, which said they were supposed to provide a drainage and maintenance plan. And then they came up here on May 3rd and said, well, we haven't been done building it. Plans come before you build, not after you build. And we've also got pictures in this lot showing that the drainage is going away from the pond towards Mr. Ellis's property. So nothing they've done in the past would show that they came here and did this on accident, and now they're just in a difficult situation because they didn't know. They knew the whole time. Then they came to you, this board, and misspoke, said false things, and now we've got the proof to show you. And so there's nothing that they've been done in knowingly taking out these buffer zones that is going to make any of the neighbors around here happy. And it shouldn't be rewarded. This type of behavior should not be rewarded. This is on live TV, and people hear this, and they know that if this is going to be allowed, or you can just go clear-cut property after getting a clear permit that said you have to leave it, this should not be allowed. This should not be condoned, and this will set a very, very negative precedence. Now, council just brought up and said, well, I'm going to talk about some of the factors and why there's a hardship here. That's not hitting the factors. That does not, and I went through all of them, and all of them indicate that this variance should not be allowed. The variance should not be granted because the granting of the variance would be a self-imposed request. That's point one. They knew it, they did it, they misspoke, misstated many things before you at this last hearing, and now they're just asking for this because they self-imposed this requirement upon themselves. That's the first point, which requires rejection. It should not be granted in the event that there is a financial hardship claimed. Well, if that's come to you, I think that's what they're saying, is that it's too hard to build or move their land, or move their pad. They haven't built their pad. They could have built any size house they wanted. They could go up higher. They could move 150 feet back towards the pond. So what's being told to you today again is not the complete truth. So that's the first and second points. The variance does not present a practical difficulty or unnecessary hardship. They can replant the land, they can move where they want to build their house, which they knew the entire time this was in existence. They knew about the energy requirements and they knew about the buffer zones, and they bought it anyway. These acres are 3.9 acres and 3.1 acres. Again, they requested that pond. They can move the house back. They asked for it. We do not want invasive bamboo. And what we want is the replanting of an acre of trees, and that's what exactly all of the neighbors around them want. So that's what we're requesting. I see my time's almost up if you have any questions.
I don't know if there's anyone else here that would like to speak against this, but you've used up all their time.
We have 5 minute rebuttal time for each side.
But we have 5 minutes of rebuttal time.
Thank you.
But I'd like in favor, please step back. And you've got 5 minutes, or anyone else has got 5 minutes of rebuttal.
Thank you. Just real quickly, Mr. Ellis's attorney, he's referencing a lot of things that are currently, a lot of allegations that are unproven, are the subject of some pending litigation. None of that is before the board. The only thing before the board today is this variance request, whether we have proven the factors that warrant the variance request, whether there's sufficient hardship, and whether the landscaping proposals that we submitted to the board or the fence proposal that we submitted to the board work in favor and support that request as well. My clients have always maintained that they did not purposely cut down the buffer zones. He showed you some Google Earth images. The whole lot was cut down at the same time. He's showing you Google Earth images that were taken or obtained from Google Earth over a period of time, over a course of time. They took down everything at the same time. It was inadvertent, and that's why they're applying for the 2 that are issued right now. They're applying for the variance. Remember, no buffer zone was required along that western perimeter of that private drive. No buffer zone was required for the pond because the pond permit included a variance for any buffer zone at that location. They have always done everything in consultation with the parish. They have always tried to work with the parish. In addition, they have always tried to work with their neighbors. Quite honestly, he says all neighbors. He pointed to 2 neighbors. Quite frankly, my clients are unfamiliar with a couple named Miller, and there's certainly, to the north of this parcel, if you look at the survey, it's a roadway. There's no adjoining property to the north, so I'm not quite sure what he's talking about with the Millers. Second of all, they're saying that, well, we created this problem by installing a pond. Well, we got the permit for the pond, and even if you took the pond out, there's a boundary line there between A1 and A2 that they have to work with, and that prevents them from relocating any house pads on their lots. I would like to say that if Mr. Ellis was so concerned with these buffer zones, he could have purchased the property, and he did not. He could have purchased it, kept all the trees there. He did not. We have, of course, they said we didn't submit a proposal. We submitted 2 proposals. We've also, as a 3rd proposal, offered to install a fence. They've submitted no proof that there is drainage any drainage is going to flow onto Mr. Ellis's property. Again, a bare allegation without proof. They're not building mansions. These are regular size, roughly 2,000 square feet houses. These are not huge houses. So to say that they can reduce the size of the house to accommodate the buffer zone is without merit. He keeps talking, we don't want invasive bamboo. That's what he says. We have never proposed invasive bamboo. If you look at both of the landscaping proposals, they provide for non-invasive golden clumping bamboo, just so purposely that it will not take over. So again, today, we contend that the requirements, he keeps mentioning utility and financial hardship. We mentioned in our letter under the Unified Development Code 130-1972D, one or more of the following factors will persuade this court to, persuade this board to grant the variance. Number one, unusual elevations of shop in the lot. Unusual elevations or shape of the lot. We've talked about how narrow the lot is. In addition, another factor is problems with servitudes. We talked about how the utility encroaches on that narrow lot and makes it even harder, even more narrow. And number three, we've also talked about the other things that are going on in the lot that prevent the houses from being relocated, whether you use the pond, the culvert, or you're looking at these boundaries that were created. You can't move the houses to accommodate the buffer zones. So with that said, we do have one set of neighbors here who are willing to come forward to support the variance request.
Hi, I'm Christy Pisani. We live at 6940 Castle Oak Lane, approximately half of a mile from their location.
You've got 30
And we have no
seconds.
issues with it. We drive by it at least 3 times a week, maybe sometimes even daily. So,
Did you fill out a speaker card, ma'am?
pardon?
Did you fill out a speaker card?
Right here.
Somebody else can speak in favor. You got 20 seconds.
I did just want to say, so it was our contractor.
Come up to the microphone, please.
We did not purposely remove the buffer. It was inadvertently removed by our contractor. He thought that it could be removed, even though when we stated it, that we showed him the land, but, so that was it. Thank you.
Thank you. Is it,
I'm sorry, I didn't.
and is there Mr. Jonathan Forrester here?
That's me.
Oh, okay. You've got 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you. You can look at their application and show that they knew the 50-foot buffer zone was required. It's what they submitted with the permit. It's what they signed and what they initialed on every page. So to have them come up here after time and say they didn't know when this is what they submitted, I'll let you judge that. We've got a neighbor from a half mile away who's okay with it. The neighbors next door are the ones that have the problem with it. The one right across the street to the north, the one immediately to the south, and the one immediately to the west. All have opposition to this, and we've submitted the papers signed from those neighbors. Their addresses for the record are 245 Glitz Lane and 518 Brewster Road. The properties at issue are 519 and 518 Brewster Road. This is what we're asking for. This is an exhibit. It's very clear. The A1 lot, it's a small lot. It's 250 feet wide. They can't build a house on a 250-foot wide lot? And then the A2 lot is just as wide as Mr. Ellis's lot. On the 5 points again, point 4, the variance should not be granted because it poses an adverse effect on the adjacent neighbor's property. It's not relevant what the neighbor half a mile away who drives by every once in a while is fine with what she sees from the road. What the issue is from the neighbor immediately adjacent to the west, Mr. Ellis, immediately to the south, and immediately to the north, which we've submitted. The neighbors removed over an acre of trees. It adversely affects the privacy of these surrounding properties. We've got a number of loud construction noises that have occurred. That's not the main issue. The main issue is they knowingly removed over an acre of trees, and a mere line of bamboo is not sufficient. And we have not been provided this fence proposal to even consider it. So I can't ask this board for another continuance to consider that when that could have been submitted to us over the entire last month, and it wasn't. And so what is it to show? They haven't followed the pond variance. They haven't followed the other requirements they're supposed to provide in the maintenance plan. They've got the drainage from the pond coming on towards Mr. Ellis's property. Their past actions don't show that they're going to comply with doing whatever could possibly be approved here. And that when Mr. Ellis tried to go work with them, he received a text message that said, don't contact us and call us anymore. If you want to talk, you communicate through this text message. You try to negotiate agreement between these neighbors via text. They didn't want to talk to him anymore, and they said, don't ever come near our property. And so these neighbors have not tried to work with the people around them. They've misrepresented to the board a number of pertinent factors that I've already gone through ad nauseum. And again, it establishes a dangerous precedent on the fifth point. There's no reason to grant this after the fact approval by the neighbors. They signed it, they initialed it in the plans knowing that this buffer zone had to be required. And so I've hit all of the 5 points to show that there's no requirement that this variance be granted. I've showed the neighbors are in opposition, and we would ask for a denial of this variance.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in opposition that would like to speak while you still have a minute and a half? Seeing none, I would entertain questions from the board. Mr. Swindell.
Just so that I'm clear, the 100-foot right-of-way from Entergy, how close to that 100-foot line can they build? Are there any restrictions on structure at that 100-foot mark? I mean, I'm assuming, is it safe to assume they can build right to that line?
To our knowledge, they
Yeah.
can.
Well, I mean, maybe y'all can answer that question too. That's fine. I'll make that assumption.
Don't make that assumption.
Yeah.
Aaron can answer if the chairman allows.
I'm sorry?
Aaron can answer if the chairman allows. I think, technical questions should be directed towards staff.
Sure,
Aaron, please answer that question.
Is it, or does it need a setback?
It needs a setback outside of the servitude. They can build up to the servitude line.
Yeah, so right to the line. Okay. All right.
Thank you.
I don't really have any questions, but I want to make a few observations here. I drove by the property on my way to the meeting this afternoon, and it's pretty. I think these pictures accurately represent the current state of affairs out there at the lot. Several times, the attorney for the party requesting this variance made some comments about the lots being unbuildable. I mean, look, even not considering this 100 feet that your parties knew existed prior to purchasing the property, there's still 2 acres. I mean, two acres per lot or more to build. You can build a large house on 2 acres and still respect these no-cut buffers that were established and were included in the original variance. I think it's poor judgment for you to claim a hardship due to that 100-foot right-of-way, in particular because it existed prior to the purchase. I think that it's also poor judgment to use the pond as a reason to create this hardship, again, because that was a prior request for a variance that was granted. I also think in your letter, it's I'm going to say poor judgment again to claim that Mr. Ellis's concerns are unfounded. And I'll be honest, you haven't convinced me that regardless of the inconvenience that it is to these property owners, that these no-cut buffers can't be reestablished. It's going to be an inconvenience. There's been some things done out there already that have to be redone. But I mean, outside of the rules and regulations that govern that narrow lot and the other areas around, I don't see a reason why these buffers can't be reestablished.
Thank you, Mr. Swindell. I recognize Mr. Blash.
Okay, I'd kind of like to go over just a couple of the findings that I believe in. The removal of the trees. The applicant has admitted that they do not know that the trees were going to be moved by the contractor, but they do understand that they were in violation of the ordinance. That's number one. With regards to the houses, I totally agree with Mr. Swindell that these houses can be adjusted and moved. We don't have to have McMansions that don't fit the lots, and that's another point I wanted to make in. The applicant's attorney said that they were locked in. Those are her exact words, locked in. And I'll just say that everyone's locked in when you purchase a lot. Each lot has a building limit that can not be exceeded. I don't see a hardship in that sense. Now, I have no issue with the buffering between the pond. That's not a big issue for me at all. It seems as though both parties were in agreement of that when they asked for the variance for the pond to begin with. Beyond that, I'm kind of with Mr. Swindler that we just, this totally violates everything that we stand for in terms of protecting the ordinances and the public at large. And so my own personal feeling of this is I cannot go along with this. I can't vote for it. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Blash. Any other questions or comments from the board? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion.
I'll make that motion.
What's the motion?
I'll make a motion to deny this appeal.
I have a motion from Mr. Swindell to deny the request for the variance. Do I see a second?
Just a moment before we vote, I would like to request, so if you're denying the request, basically the owner will have to come back and submit a replanting plan.
That's correct.
The three options that were presented, I'm assuming, that are not satisfying to the board. So basically they will have to reapply and resubmit a different plan.
Yeah,
In accordance
yes.
with the ordinances, yes.
Or meet the original variance.
Meet the original setbacks.
Setbacks,
Correct.
right.
So I've got a motion by Mr. Swindell, a second by Ms. Thomas or Mr. Blash.
Go ahead, Ms. Thomas, that's fine.
We have a second. Any other discussion or comment? Please vote with your screen. The motion passed to deny the request for the variance. The next case is our third case for this afternoon, BOA case number 2859, a request by the applicant in an A2 suburban zoning district to reduce the required front yard setback from 25 feet to 11 feet and the required rear yard setback from 12 feet to 11 or 11 and a half feet to allow for the construction of a single-family residence. The property is located at 69177 4th Avenue in Covington, Louisiana. The applicant is Quejas Property Investment, Eric and Susana Rodriguez. Staff comments, please.
The objective of the request is to allow for the construction of a single-family residence. While the property is only 60 feet in depth, it does not prevent the construction of a single-family residence on the property.
Is someone here on this case? Please step forward, state your name and your address, and make any comments you have for this case.
Okay, my name is Eric Rodriguez. I'm here for 69177 4th Avenue. I'm with my wife and my son. We're trying to build a house for the first time, so we have, sorry you not understand me. I'm gonna try my best.
We can see you, we can understand you fine.
Okay, so we are trying to build our first house in this area, but at the beginning when we bought the lot, we didn't release the lot. It was too narrow from the front in the 4th Avenue. It's long to the Dory Street. The one is not constructed yet, but we couldn't set the house in front of Dory Street because it's not constructed. So that's why we are requesting to give us the opportunity to extend a little bit more the house from in front of 4th Avenue. I know the regulation is it kind of regulation in all the houses right there. So our house is gonna be a little bit different, but there's no choice. We don't have any choice right now. We're just trying to have the designer, Diamond Design. She did this plan for us. We like the house for my family. I think it looks nice. Trying to have enough space in the living room, but we're still gonna build the house a long way. But we still need a little bit more space in the front to build the house. It's just gonna be a little bit different. So that's why we're here today. We are working on this. It's the first house we're building, so we don't know too much about this. So that's our dream house.
Just a minute. Is there anyone else present in support of this request? If you would, would you please step back? And is Miss Juanita Minio here? You would like to, you have a speaker card in opposition. Please step forward, state your name and address, please, and present your comments about this.
Juanita Minio, 20527 George Wheat Road, Covington, Louisiana. Let me explain. 4th Avenue makes a big turn, and that's George Wheat, so I'm at the end of this road. But currently, my husband and I are building on 4th Avenue a home for my in-laws. We had to buy 4 lots, subdivide them to follow all the guidelines. My fear is that if you approve this one, we have a lot of little lots, and if they start building on all those little lots, then we're gonna have too much traffic, too much water damage. I mean, we've had trouble with flooding. We still have issues that the parish hasn't taken care of. They've taken care of most of it, but there's one house that they didn't do, so that's my fear. And then the parking's the other issue. The street, it's narrow. It doesn't fit 2 full vehicles. You're barely getting past, and if they're gonna park on the street, then you gotta go around them. So that's my thing.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here in opposition to this case? Mr. Rodriguez, you have 5 minutes to, if you want to say anything else in rebuttal.
Yes. Can I go?
Please step forward. Yes, come to the microphone and.
Thank you. Well, again, thank you for the opportunity. I'm so glad to be here. I think we are here fighting to have this house set up like that because we have no choice. Actually, it's not gonna be a big house. It's just a space for us to live like. And we're not gonna take too much from the front. It's just gonna be a little bit to have a little porch. So I don't see any problem for neighbors to, for us to build a house right there like that way. And right now we're trying to build a house because we're trying to move to the house. I'm trying to give to my son a new life and keep going, you know. Like, that's all I want to say.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
In case the board has, just please step back right there.
Okay.
Don't go back. And Mr. Spees, I'll recognize Mr. Spees.
Did you have any rebuttal?
Oh, did you have anything? Excuse me, Ms. Minio. You can speak in rebuttal if you had anything else to say.
No, not really.
Okay. Then recognize Mr. Spees.
I guess my question is for staff. Did they have many houses that are lined up over there, only 11 feet? Or would this be a real?
There's an aerial, let me see. There's another house right next door to it. It looks like maybe they've used 3 lots. What happens is because Doris, which is the adjacent unopened right-of-way, is not open, that they have to face Fourth Avenue instead of facing Doris. So in other words, if Doris would be open, the plan they're submitting would meet the requirements. And due to the fact that it's turned, then it's only 60 foot in depth.
I have another comment. We work hard with the designer to set a house with the regulation, like have the right side in the front of 4th Avenue, but it was impossible to set a house. We trying to draw a house, but the room in the living room was too narrow, just like a little tiny house. So there's no way to live in that in a house like that. So we decided to put the long house in the property, but we still set the house take a little bit more of the front of the property, and that's all we did with the design.
I'm not gonna vote for that.
Okay,
I'm not gonna vote for that.
I'd like to recognize Mr. Blige.
Okay, this is a staff question, because it's my understanding that when you determine the frontage of a property, you go by the width of the property. The narrowest portion of the width of that lot is determined to be the front. Now, you can place your house towards any frontage that you like, street or right-of-way, but taking that into account, how would that affect if this, and you said Doris is the street that's not been built out?
That's correct, but the front of the property is always where the address is located.
I understand.
And in this case, the address is on 4th Street because Doris is not open.
Right, okay, so that rule of thumb in terms of the width of the lot doesn't come into play with this, because there's no established right-of-way or roadway that can be utilized. Is that
That's
correct for an
correct.
address? Okay, okay. My only other, and I guess I sure would like to be able to help him, but, you know, having just uttered these words locked in at the last case, I feel like I'd be a buffoon if I didn't carry through on that, in that some houses just don't belong on some lots, unfortunately. And Mr. Rodriguez, I applaud you for wanting to be a homeowner and to build your first house, and that's great and everything else. But it puts it's a hardship on us to have to be able to prove something like that. I don't know how we can approve the setbacks, and I'd like to find a way to help you, but at this point in time, I just don't see it.
Okay, any other questions or comments from the board? I see nobody with requesting. Okay, I will then entertain a motion on this case.
Well, okay.
I have a motion from Mr. Spies to deny the request for the variance. Do I have a second?
Mr. Chairman, I'll regretfully second it, but yes, it'll be a second.
And we have a regretful second of the motion to deny the request for variance from Mr. Blige. Any other comments or anything from the board? Seeing none, please vote with your screen.
One abstain and 4 yeas. Motion carries, it's denied.
Your request for the variance was denied. We're sorry, but thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, our next case is BOA case number 2860. Request by applicant in an A1 suburban zoning district to reduce the required roadway to cut buffers from 25 feet down to 18 feet, and the required sides and rear no-cut buffers from 50 feet to 36 feet to allow for the replacement of a fence. The property is located at 81160 Katy Lane in Bush, Louisiana. The representative applicant is Waterhole Fork Farms, Marianne Fritcher. Staff comments, please.
The objective of the request is to allow for the installation of a fence along the property line for security purposes and to keep trespassers and other animals off the property. There is no compelling reason to support the request since the property is approximately 31 acres and there is sufficient space to maintain the buffers and install a fence.
Yes, ma'am. Please step forward and state your name and address and add any comments you have on this case.
My name's Mary Ann Fritcher. I live at 1250 Hesper Avenue in Metairie, Louisiana. Thank you.
Yes, step closer to the mic.
Okay.
Thank you.
You want me to repeat that?
No,
Okay. Can I bring my husband up here in
Of
case you
course.
have questions? Because
just make him tell
Okay.
him who he is.
Joseph Fritcher, 1250 Hesper Avenue, Metairie, Louisiana, hopefully to be a new resident of Bush. We purchased the property, and the property is not fenced in. We've talked to several fencing contractors, and because there's this no-mow buffer, we have to cut a line to install a fence. We're not trying to remove the buffer, we're just trying to install a fence. On the frontal property across Katy Lane, we can use the right-of-way, the roadway, for most of it. We just have to be able to get our equipment on our side of the fence to install it, and I just need to be able to maintain that fence afterwards. On the sides, east side, west side, and the north, there's a 50-foot no-mow buffer. On the west side, the horse farm that is next to us, they approached us when they found out we were the new owners, and she said she wants us to cut our side of the fence so that she can get in there and do repairs to hers. And I said, no, there's a no-mow buffer. We have to apply for a variance. And she was happy. Of course, she's the only one. Well, she did not sign the letter we had typed, not objecting, only because we weren't able to get in touch with her. She's out of town. However, she wants us to remove so that she can get her people in there to repair her fence. The only part of our property that has a fence is that west line. That's about 1,400 feet. The east line has 4 owners. We have letters of no contest with 2 of the 4. We have not been able to meet the 2 on the north end of that eastern line. And the gentleman who owns the north line, he signed. He has no problem with it. I was just not aware that someone would have country acreage and not have it fenced in. It's just, I come from Metairie, where everything has fences. But
And I have those 3 letters.
Could you please bring that up for the staff? Thank you. I was just going to ask where those letters were.
so on the sides and in the rear, we need a little bit more than just a 7-foot buffer to get the equipment in, because we don't have Katy Lane to work from. So we're asking for 14 feet. The brush cutter that the gentleman has is 7 feet wide, and he's proposing making 2 passes with it so that he can get the equipment in there to build the fence. And so all we want is to build the fence and then slip in to maintain the fence and let the buffer grow back, or we haven't even, this is the first one of these meetings we've ever been to, and after the 3 cases ahead of us, we're not prepared. So I'm just a beekeeper. I want a place for my bees, and we want the buffers and the flowers. The bees love the flowers. So there's no problem. We just want to get in and build the fence and then maintain it. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone in opposition to this variance request that's here to speak in opposition? Seeing none, how about the board? Any comments or questions from the board? I'd like to recognize Mr. Swindell.
So I understand the reason you want to build a fence, but is there any reason why you can't do it and still maintain the 50-foot no-cut buffer?
If the 50-foot buffer is from the edge of the property 50 feet, No, I've got to cut a line to get the equipment in to build the fence.
Sure, yeah, well, that's understandable, but I mean, the intent, so I see what you're saying. What you're saying, I'm going to summarize here, I think, is that your fence then would have to go 7 foot inside of that 50-foot line because you need to get the equipment in there to build the fence.
And we have plenty of room inside. We don't need it.
Right.
We just have a little 3-acre home site that we had cleared, but we have plenty of room around the perimeter of the property. We just need to be able to cut within the perimeter of the property to install the fence.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask a question?
I'm sorry.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
The drawing that you submitted here, it shows there's a red line, and then there's a yellow line. So this is what you own, the entire.
And then there should be a purple line.
Okay, so what is the purple line?
I'm not looking at it. I was unprepared. If I could have it, I can digest that for you. My son did that, by the way, not me.
He's got it.
The purple line is the yard. The yellow line followed the contour of the property, because what you do not see, well, you do see in that picture, just if you follow that yellow line onto Angels Grove Horse Farm, you're going to see their pond. Their pond, you don't see this because this is not a topo map, but that pond drains just to the northeast of that yellow line. The yellow line indicates property that does not flood, high property. The purple line is approximately 2.96 acres, and we wanted that as the yard. And on Katy Lane, which is to the left of your picture, if you have it in landscape, that would be the that's the setback from Katy Lane.
But is the yellow line, is it the 31 acres?
No. Around the perimeter is 2 marks, and that tries to indicate the no-mow buffer. He had a hard time making it fit, make it to scale.
It's the red lines.
We have a double orange line.
Yeah.
The
Double orange line.
The double orange line is the 31 acres.
Correct.
Okay, so.
The one on the outside is 31.29 acres.
Okay, so to understand, the orange line is the 31 acres. The yellow line
The
is
yellow
the area
line
that doesn't flood?
is high ground.
Okay.
Usable property to us, not necessarily fields, but usable property. Everything else is the northernmost tributary to the Buggerfly River, Waterhole Fork, and it says it on there, Waterhole Fork. That's a river. That's a stream, a natural stream. We can't go into there, and we're not trying to.
So maybe if I'm trying to understand your request here, is what is
If you
is
have the
east?
piece of paper landscape, on the top is the north.
Okay, so what is on the east side of the purple line and the yellow line, you own that portion?
Everything inside that outer orange box we own. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so in other words, you don't need to request a waiver of the buffers on you would only be requesting a waiver of the buffer along the street? Or,
Actually, we need to get around the entire perimeter to put in a fence. Now, call me ignorant, but I was of the understanding that the buffer is on the perimeter of our property. Sides and rear are 50 feet, front is 25 feet. So if I want to cut a line to put in a fence, I've got to cut into the buffer. That's why we spent the $200, and that's why we're here. Okay? We have plenty ground. I'm not trying to say move the buffer. I just got to get in and put in the darn fence. Once the fence is there, I just got to slip in with a weed eater and maintain it.
I think the confusion here is your desire is to build the fence on that 50-foot mark. Is that correct?
On the outside edge of the
Right.
property. Yes, sir.
I mean, I'll be honest, I think that in order to maintain the 50 feet, if it's 7 feet clearance you need, you're gonna have to put that fence at 57 feet from the property line. So you gotta figure out how to build a fence, and I struggle with voting in favor of approving a variance to cut 7 feet just so you can build a fence right at the 50-foot mark. Because you could build the fence at 57 feet inside the property line just as well, if it's 7 feet
Then
that you
I'm
need.
giving up 50 feet of my property, which I want to have that property. I just need a fence.
It's still your property.
It's my property, but
Well, I understand. I mean, look, I think you got to figure out if you want as much inside that fence as possible, you got to figure out, in my opinion, and this is just me, how to build that fence with minimizing the amount of clearing you're going to have to do on the outside of it. So whether that's 2, 3, 4 feet in order to maintain that 50 feet.
is it the only area that you're trying to clear?
No,
No.
we already cleared this stuff on the site.
that was our clearing permit, the purple,
We just wanted to put a fence this way.
around the perimeter of the property.
Okay, so you're trying, this is where the fence,
you're
trying to place the fence.
On the outside edge around the property.
Okay. Let me, Mr. Spees is next in line. Let me
Okay.
get Mr. Spees.
All right.
Recognize Mr. Spees.
I wouldn't have any problem if it was 7 feet all around. The 14 feet, I don't quite understand that. So you're not going to knock out all the trees in 7 feet. 14 feet, you're beginning to do that. And we don't normally agree, we don't normally want to do that anyway. But that's part of the buffer zone.
So what is the?
That's just me.
Okay, so if that was acceptable, do we have to reapply for a variance?
We can amend it now.
Okay.
If the rest
Well,
of
I
the
mean, the contractor wanted 14 feet to get his equipment in. That's where the 14 came from. All I want is to be able to put the fence in. That's all I want. And then to maintain it. The tree falls on it, I've got to be able to get in there and fix it. I'm not looking to take trees out. I'm not looking to take, there's a lot of flowering plants. There's a plant called privet that the bees go crazy over. That's all in that perimeter. I don't want to touch that. But I need to put a fence. The lady next door with the horse ranch, those horses, she has a gate that she opens up and they take the horses on my property. I don't want that. We got hunters on my property, and I'm going to have my little grandchildren with me. I don't want that. I need to put a fence, and that's all this is for is to put in a fence. So whatever you can do to allow us to get in and just do that, that's all I'm looking for.
Okay. I'd like to recognize Mr. Blash. You have.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Fritsch, I'm trying to discern, what type of fence are we talking about here? Because it seems like this is going to be a massive fence that requires 14 feet to be cleared all the way around to be able to get equipment. And I'm trying to get a better understanding of what it is that you're trying to accomplish. Is it a wood page fence, a wood fence? Is it a iron fence, barbed wire?
Iron T-post with 39-inch hog wire on the bottom, one stretch of barbed wire above that.
Okay, and I'll just tell you, I don't know that you need 14 feet to do that. As a young man, I did a lot of that with my grandfather, okay?
Well-
And so
This distance is 1,400 feet,
I understand.
and that's why the contractor was balking. This distance is another 1,400 feet. I'm not doing it. 67 years of age, I'm breaking them apart every day. It's something
I understand.
breaks on me. I'm not doing it. But that's what the contractor asked for. But whatever you can give us to get in and put a 39-inch hauled wire, which is going to be in big rolls now, and I got to get it out there some kind of way. But all we want to do is put a fence around that perimeter. We do not want to tear the privet or the other flowering plants apart, because that's why we're moving the bush.
I'm good.
Any other questions, comments, or anything? I'll entertain a motion on this variance.
So can we amend it right now? To,
Just give us a second.
okay.
Can I make a motion? As a chair of a small board under Robert's rules? Pardon me?
Yes, you may, as a small group.
Well, except that he heard the case,
Exactly.
so I'd prefer for another member to make the motion, if there's a motion to be made.
Mr. Spies, please make your motion.
What would be the proper procedure here if he would change it to 7 feet and we would approve it? That would be fine? That'd be okay?
I think so.
What is changed to 7 feet? I'm not understanding.
The no-cut buffer
To clear 7 feet inside the 50-foot?
on the outside.
No.
On the outside of
Instead of 50 feet in the property line, come in 7 feet.
7 feet.
Oh, to clear 7 feet
Yes.
on the, okay.
Around the perimeter.
Right, exactly.
I'm gonna shut up, excuse me.
Would that be agreeable to y'all?
Yes.
Okay.
So just to clarify, it would be a motion to approve the variance to reduce the required roadway no-cut buffers from 25 feet to 18 feet, would be the 7 feet, and the required side and rear no-cut buffers from 50 feet to 43 feet?
Correct.
Okay.
Well, hang on, can we add a bit of clarification? Is that is that 7 feet, is that from the property line or is that from the inside of the no-cut buffer?
No, it's from the property.
It's from the property line, okay.
From the property line. Okay. I got a motion.
I'll second it.
I got a second from Ms. Thomas. Any other questions? Mr. Blash.
Friendly amendment to that, so that any trees or, Class A, B trees or C and shrubs be replaced, a planting plan be provided and carried out and issued? Because what I'm saying, if we're gonna tear down some trees, I'd like to see them go back up.
It will be very difficult to enforce that due to he's trying to keep a buffer to install a fence and be able to maintain. And without a plan at this moment, we can't just ask him to replant just a number of trees.
I will replant. I'm a beekeeper. I need to replant.
You will replant the 7 foot that you're clearing?
Not the 7 foot.
I just need to get in to cut the fence.
Oh, yeah. But that's gonna remain cleared so you can always maintain your fence.
Just enough to get in with a weed whacker to clear the fence or to repair it. I need the 7 feet to install the fence.
Okay.
So, I was asking for a friendly amendment to be added. I don't know if anyone's going to second that or not, but, allow it, but I would like to see the trees replanted. Because here, what we keep coming across and keep doing to this 50-foot cut area is, or no-cut area, is we keep just letting it go. And we're losing, every day we do this, we're losing trees. We're losing that canopy that everyone comes here for. And I ask myself sometimes, if you didn't want the canopy, why'd you come here? And so it's our duty as commissioners to do our best to try and maintain that at all costs. That's what we've been placed here to do.
So
So
When you're saying replant the trees, do they
if you're
have-
taking out I don't know, a 12, 15-inch diameter tree, I need another tree planted alongside or in a position that's not in the line where you're going to be putting your fence, but maybe to the side of it.
On our property lines themselves.
Right.
We have privet, which is a scrawny tree with a beautiful white flower,
Okay.
sort of like a wild ligustrum.
I understand.
And the bees go crazy over it.
That's awesome.
And what struck us when we were looking at the property, we were there in March, a year ago, and all the bees from the area were in it, and you could hear the buzzing. And we have 12 colonies in Metairie, and our neighbors hate it. And so we're thinking about moving them
I understand completely.
where we have 31 acres to put them in.
Okay.
So I think
Right.
my question was, we cleared almost 3 acres, 2-point-something acres for our home site, because we didn't want any trees in a hurricane to land on our house eventually that we're gonna build. Can we replant some of those trees in that 3 acres? Is that acceptable?
Yes.
Because
Well, and what I'm asking, not is, if you have a line of sight where you have the barbed wire fence is coming through, and there's a tree that you have to cut because it will be in the way of that line coming straight instead of having the zig around it. What I'm saying is, if you cut that tree down, replace it. Go back 2, 3 feet, 4 feet, whatever it is, and replace it. If we're losing a 28, 30-inch diameter tree because of a fence, a barbed wire fence, let's replace it and have some replanting of it. And that's because this is a long, when you go around the diameter, this is a long way. There's a lot of trees potentially that can be taken out.
There are no big trees on the line. I've walked that line with my son on 3 occasions.
Okay.
However, any tree that we take out, we don't have a problem replacing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just
And
far enough
stay-
off the fence to be able to maintain the fence.
Okay, thank you.
Understand.
Staff has already commented that it would be quite difficult to replace all the trees and maintain that. He's already said he'll do his best. She requested, could we plant some trees in our yard? And I think that would be acceptable too.
Okay.
So I think we've got a motion to approve and a second. Any other questions or comments?
Just a moment. So, okay, is it subject to our replanting? Or this is,
This is just an entry into the seven
Okay.
feet of the 50-foot.
okay. So it's not
No
subject to a
cut
replanting? Okay, thank you.
Okay. We've got a motion and a second. Please vote with your screen.
Yes.
Do you need that, Emily?
3 yeas and 2 nays, motion failed.
Your request for variance failed because it didn't obtain 4 positive votes, so I'm sorry, but it did not pass.
Okay, so what can we do?
That you can contact the staff and find out what your next alternative is.
So staff was the person we put our application into?
I'm staff.
Oh, staff. Okay, Miss Buckley. How do we contact you? Can you?
I'm Mrs. Lambert.
Oh, you're Miss Lambert. Okay. I'm looking at this sign that says here. Okay, you're Helen Lambert.
Yes,
Okay, so we can email you and,
that's correct.
all right, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Our next case for this evening is BOA case number 2873. Request by applicant in an A4 single-family residential zoning district to reduce the required rear yard setback from 22 feet to 20 feet to allow for the construction of a single-family residence. The property is located at 13483 River Lake Drive, Covington, Louisiana. The applicant is Mr. Jeffrey Rathburn. Staff comments, please.
The objective of the request is to allow for the construction of a single-family residence. While the property is only 110 feet in depth, it does not prevent the construction of a single-family residence on the property.
Is the applicant present?
Yes.
Please state your name and address and add any comments you'd like to add to this variance request.
Thank you. My name's Jeffrey Rathburn. My address is currently 1848 Fig Street, Metairie, Louisiana. We retired this month, and so we put in for a building permit on Lake Ramsey. So hopefully this will be our future address. So I did get a chance to look at a couple of YouTubes of this, so I've tried to anticipate what some of the questions may be. If I miss some, I know you guys will ask me. We are asking for a 2-foot variance. We will not be encroaching towards any of our neighbors' property. It's going back towards the lake. And I want to quickly acknowledge, I know ignorance is no excuse, but the restrictive covenants that were filed back in 1995 for Lake Ramsey Phase 3 put the setback at 20 feet. And our survey that I should have had updated, but when we purchased the property, it was from 2008, and it also shows a 20-foot setback. Again, I'm not trying to say that trumps anything. I just want you to know we were in very good faith when we designed our home. It is a relatively small lot, and we designed to age in place, so it makes the home a little bigger than I had hoped for, not as big as my wife wanted. But we are literally within the footprint of what I thought our setback was for our design. If we could move it 2 feet one way, turn it on its axis, whatever we could do, we would do that. I mean, we wouldn't be here. We didn't know about this until the planning department was kind enough to let us know, by the way, you know, it's 10%, not 20 feet. And we didn't know that, and they were kind enough to let us know what route we needed to take, which is apply for the variance. I have gone and gotten no objection from the HOA, no objection from our neighbor to the south. The one to the north we weren't able to get because they don't live there. This is their kind of a weekend getaway home, and we just haven't been able to get in touch with them. We've met them, nice people. We would respectfully request the variance of 2 feet. We started off with a 2-story home, and then we said, look, you know, all of our siblings and everything are like us, getting a little older, so we went down to 1 story, and that did increase the square footage before we knew about this 22-foot requirement. I will say this, the vast majority, we're one of the last lots on that street, on the lakeside. There may be 2 others, I'm not positive, they're not up for sale, but there may be 2 other vacant ones. The vast majority of the houses by sight line are 20-foot setback because that's what the restrictive covenants are. And I believe that was legal at the time they were built. I don't think that they had to go and get a variance for this. So I'm just saying we're not asking for anything. We're not trying to impede or impinge on anything. We just want ours to be even with the rest of the folks and let us stick with our design. I know that financial hardship isn't supposed to play that much into it, but we'll have to get the whole thing redesigned if we don't do this. And again, the only neighbors we're moving towards are across the lake from us. We're 2 feet closer to them, but there's a lake between us. And other than that, we just respectfully request that you guys allow us this variance. And that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Rathburn. Please step back just a second. Is there anyone here to comment in opposition to the request for variance? Seeing none, I will recognize myself to ask a question, and I really have a comment. Historically, for the board, I think we've been generous in our review and approval of. We've had a number of these cases over the years, and we have been generous in our approval of these cases. So with that, I'll call on Mr. Swindell.
That answered my question.
I'll call on Mr. Blash.
And I'm just going to kind of trumpet what you're saying there, Mr. Chairman, because if I recall, we had a case like this maybe sometime 8-9 months ago, and it was very similar to this. We got the letter from the homeowners association that doesn't present a problem. You know, the whole reasoning behind a rear yard setback is one of privacy, safety as well. But as you said, your neighbor is probably, what, 3,000 feet away or so? So yes, I don't see where this presents a problem at all, and I think it's, you know, in keeping with what we've done in the past.
Very good, thank you.
We've set precedent, several times in this area, so I think we should follow suit, given everything.
Thank you, Ms. Thomas. I'll recognize Mr. Spees.
I'm in agreement with what everybody said, so.
I think everyone's had an opportunity to speak, so I'll entertain a motion on this request for variance.
I move to approve the request for variance from the 22 to 20 foot to be allowed that the home be built.
Have a motion by Ms. Thomas to approve the variance as requested. Do I see a second? Second by Mr. Blash. Any other comments or discussion from the board? Seeing none, please vote with your screen.
All in favor?
All in favor, unanimous approval. Thank you. Good luck. Our next case is BOA case 2874. Request by applicant in an A4, a single-family residential zoning district to reduce the required front yard setback from 25 feet to 10 feet and on the required rear yard setback from 20 feet to 10 feet to allow for the placement of a manufactured home. The property is located on 26383 Edward Street in Slidell, Louisiana. The applicant is Letitia Foster. Staff comments, please.
The objective of the request is to allow for the placement of a manufactured home. When the applicant submitted the application, she was under the impression that the manufactured home was going to be 80 foot. However, as you can see on the attached drawing, it is 76 foot. While the property is only 25 foot wide and 100 foot in depth, it does not prevent for the placement of a smaller manufactured home that will allow to meet or more close to meet the required setback.
Is Ms. Letitia Foster here? I'm here. Please step forward, state your name and address.
I'm Letitia Foster. The address is 36383 Edward Street, Slidell, Louisiana. I think it's 70445, I think.
Do you have anything else to add? You've got the floor. You can add any comments you may have in support of this.
Like I said, in February, I bought the property. It is a 25 by 100 foot. The mobile home dealer in Gulfport that I'm buying it from, they know about it. They did tell me about the setbacks and all the regulations. The lady that's working with me, she said the trailer would fit, but I would have to go through planning and zoning for the setbacks. I know it's a narrow and small area, but I mean, if they're willing to get it in there, you know, that's fine with me. But I mean, honestly, like I said, all I want is just for the trailer to be over there. I worked hard. I know it's a long trailer, but I mean, I'm willing to make it work, and they're willing to make it work. So I don't really think I have anything else to say to that.
Is there anyone here in opposition to this request? Seeing none, I have one question. Have you already, I think you've answered, I'm not really clear on it. Have you already purchased this manufactured home?
Yes, it's in Gulfport. It's Regional Homes in Gulfport.
And you've already purchased it?
Yeah.
And it's 76 feet long?
Yeah, it's a 16 by 76.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am. State your name.
My name is Barbara Thompson, address 36271 Edward Street in Slidell, 70460.
Yes, ma'am.
We're here to oppose this, me and some of my neighbors, because her property is right next door to mine, which is 25 by 100, and I don't see it working well on that one lot. I have a 16 by 80. I had to get 3 lots to put my mobile home on. and it sits in the middle, so it's taking up some of each lot that I have. So I don't see hers fitting in there perfect well. Something is gonna come where her driveway, if she can make a driveway, would be across from my other neighbor's house. And then she needs a treatment plant and well placed on their property. I don't see it working well that way.
Are you lot 19?
Huh?
What lot is yours? Are you on Edward Street?
Yes, I am, right next to hers.
Or
I have 3 lots.
hers is 22.
I have 3. Yours, I have
Yours
3
is 22,
lots.
I'm sorry.
But I had to combine the 3 lots into one. So that's why I looked like that. I had to pay twice to have my property.
Okay.
The first signer on there couldn't make it because they went on their honeymoon, but he really wanted to be here. And it's only 5 people on Edward Street, which is myself. I sit on the right-hand side, and it's 4 houses on the left-hand side. And they all opposed except for 2.
Can you please fill out a speaker card after?
Huh?
Can you please fill out a speaker card after?
There's a speaker card over there. Could you put your name and address and on there? And for the board, we have a kind of a petition here signed by 5 owners in the area. I guess these are in opposition. Concerned residents of Edward Street. Okay. Is there anyone else here in opposition to this request? Seeing none, any other board member questions?
Just sort of a finding, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
It seems as though, here we go again with that square peg, it just won't go down that round hole. It's just another case of that, in my opinion. And
Okay.
if there's no other.
No, Mr. Spees?
Oh, okay.
I think you need a bigger lot or a smaller trailer put in there, otherwise it wouldn't be a problem.
Is it possible to ask the owner if she looked into getting a smaller mobile home?
Letitia, could you come forward, please? Ms. Foster? Yes. The staff had a question for you.
Did you entertain the possibility of
What
purchasing a
size
smaller?
trailer are you looking at for me to get, so I can like ask them or talk to them about it?
Well, I don't know it. I don't know what's actually available besides a 76-foot long.
I mean, I could try to see if they have a 14 by 60 or something, but I doubt it because a lot of new mobile home dealers are making 70, 80s, and double wides now, so it's kind of tricky. I mean, if it comes to it, it might have to be ordered, but I can try to ask, but I doubt it. I mean, I tried the one in Hammond, they don't have no small trailers, so I could try Gulfport and see.
Could we just provide her maybe with the buildable area requirements, and then that way she could take it with her and she would have the information.
She's aware of the the requirements, but is it possible for the board to consider postponing so maybe she can look into another option and come back?
If that's her wishes, I would have no issue with that myself. We certainly want to try and, accommodate you.
Would you like to postpone your request?
Sure. Do you want me to find something like 70 or?
What, you can come back with, submitting a request for a smaller mobile home.
Okay.
In addition, if you're working with a company and they are aware of the restrictions in St. Tammany Parish, they should be able to work with you and recommend.
Yeah, she said she'll look into if there's a problem,
Yeah.
but she said there's more likely they might not be able to find one, but if it's so, they can order one, but I have to see what they have.
In this day and age, with as many people as need to sell things, I'll bet you they'll find you one.
I hope so.
So you're requesting a postponement till,
Yeah, I'm
till
fine
the
with that.
July meeting?
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay, we have to have a motion for the postponement till the July meeting on this case.
I
Mr.
move
Chairman,
that we postpone BOA case 2022-2874 until the July meeting.
Ms. Thomas has made a motion to postpone to the July meeting on 2874. Mr. Blanche has
I'll second, right.
second the motion. Any other discussion? Seeing none, please vote with your screen.
All in favor, motion pass.
It approved. We'll see you next month. Okay. The next case is BOA case number 2889, request by applicant in a PUD, Plan Unit Development Overlay to reduce the required rear yard setback from 30 feet to 10 feet. The property is located at 538 Solitude Way in Covington, Louisiana. The representative or the applicant is David and Ramona Wilt. Staff comments, please.
The objective of the request is to allow for an approximately 24-foot addition to an existing single-family residence. The addition will consist of a game room, staircase, and 2 bedrooms on the second floor. The requested variance is a personal preference rather than a property hardship.
Is the applicant present? Yes, ma'am. Please come forward, state your name and address, and add anything you might like to say.
My name is Ramona Wilt. My address is 538 Solitude Way in Covington, Louisiana. We have lived in our house for a little over 8 years. I have 5 children, and my husband travels for work every week, so I'm home with them. And so we're really established in our neighborhood. We have looked to move to a different area where we could have more space for our children. I have 3 kids with IEPs that are kind of set in their schools. And so we've struggled to find another house that would accommodate our family, that each of my children could have some of their own space. Because they are so close in age, we would like to be able to give them some space in our house where they can separate from one another. So we had reached out to our HOA management company to find out about our setbacks, just to make sure that we were following all the guidelines, and we were told 10 feet was the rear setback along with the sides, and that the front, I believe, was 30 or 25. So we had plans drawn for an addition for our kids to have an extra kind of recreation room, and then, like she mentioned, there's actually 2 bedrooms and a bathroom that would be upstairs. And it was only after talking with probably 12 different contractors to get bids that a contractor said, I really think this rear setback is not right. I think you really need to look further into it. And upon that, we found out that he was actually right, and we were told the wrong information originally. So before kind of letting that go, we had already done our plans. We talked to our neighbors, who we adore, and they all want us to stay on the block too. And our kids are very established there. So we thought we would come and see if it would be possible to change that rear setback so we could go ahead with the addition that I submitted. And I also had submitted letters of, I guess, not no contest, but approval from both of our neighbors saying that they would be absolutely fine with the addition. And I also got the HOA approval to change that rear setback. So that's it.
Thank you. Is there any? Excuse me. Is there anyone here in opposition to this request for variance? Seeing none, I will recognize myself, and I forgot what I was recognizing myself for. Oh, isn't it refreshing to have someone here that got the comments and is actually not doing it after the fact, but is requesting and trying to do it properly? I just want to make the comment, it really is refreshing. Thank you. But then I'll shut up. I recognize Mr. Blanche.
I think Ms. Thomas, oh, she's withdrawn. Okay. Yeah, we had a similar case, and I'm wondering, how wide is that green space right there between the
I
other
believe
properties?
it's about 20 feet, and then there would still be the 10-foot off of our setback. And I also submitted pictures of our backyard that showed that green space is very dense. And so we can't even see our the neighbor beyond that green space. And it kind of stays like that year-round as well, so.
Okay, so functionally, that green space is kind of adding to the privacy, which is what those are set up for, the side yard, backyard. Now, I know we had a case like this two months ago, very similar to this, where we had a large amount of green space, and I don't think there was an issue with that. I think it was a unanimous vote on that. So myself personally, I don't see where it presents a problem for anyone. With the HOA's blessing, I'm ready to vote for it.
Well, let me recognize Mr. Spies.
You had 2 approval letters from 2 neighbors.
Yes, sir.
Where were those neighbors at?
They are the ones, I believe it's the east and west side of my property.
Okay,
It's-
right next to you.
Yeah, they're literally, yes, we share fences with both of those neighbors.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments? I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, BOA case number 2022-2889. I'd like to make a motion to approve the variance request as submitted.
I got a motion from Mr. Blash and a second from Mr. Spies to approve this variance request as submitted. Any other comments, discussion? Seeing none, please vote with your screen.
All in favor, motion carries.
Unanimous approval. Our next case is BOA case number 2890, request by applicant in an A1A suburban zoning district for a waiver of the western side 50-foot no-cut buffer and to selectively cut the southern 50-foot and 25-foot no-cut buffer and allow for replanting. The property is located at 194 Rucker Road in Madisonville, Louisiana, and the applicant representative is Keith Luminay. Yes. Staff comments, please.
The objective of the request is to allow for the clear cutting of the 50-foot western no-cut buffer and to clear cut and selectively cut the invasive species of trees within the southern no-cut buffer. While no hardship has been demonstrated to be in favor of the requested variances, a detailed replanting plan has been submitted showing the trees to be protected and proposed native trees to be replanted as well. Should the board be in favor of the request, it should be subject to impose a timeline and date to complete the replanting of the tree and required inspection by the parish landscape architect.
Thank you. Yes, sir. State your name and address and add anything you'd like to say about this request.
My name is Keith Luminay, and my address is 500 South Down Loop. Initially, I was granted a clearing permit on this property, I guess a few months ago. I've started to clear it and since met the neighbors and have become aware of a drainage problem back there and some other issues that I was unaware of in my due diligence of buying the property. But when I was in the title search with the attorney, essentially what happened was the developer didn't grant a right-of-way to my property and another property back there. And there was litigation, and it turned into a mess, and it ended up getting cleaned up. But they came and put Rucker Road through there, and it essentially dead ends at my property. But there's no culverts coming from the south side to the north side, which is the way the water used to naturally flow, according to my neighbors. And the ditches, I'm still unclear about those because apparently they're not maintained by the parish because the parish doesn't own them. They just dug them and put them along the side of this road. And so, long story short, what's going on is now the water comes around the south side of Rucker. The guy that's just to the south of me, he's got water on the front lawn, and then the guy to the southeast of me, all the water runs through his property, and then the guy to the west of me with the field, it's all piling up on his property, and his road that's to the north of me, he's told me he's had all kind of problems with because of the water. So at the end of the day, I didn't learn all this until I got the clearing permit and started. I've cleared probably, I don't know, 2 acres of it and met the neighbors, and we've come together, myself, the southeast neighbor, and the western neighbor. And my plan is to put a pond about 1 acre or 1.5 acres in there to catch the water and send it to the north and get it out of there. But I got a civil engineer about 2 months ago to come walk the property with me. And we're going to have to change the topography and put drainage in there. And then I had Miss Virginia Besant, who is the landscape architect, come out and evaluate those buffers. And she said that they're invasive species anyway. And she formulated this replanting schedule to give to you guys. But that's what I'm dealing with. I'm not looking to just wipe the trees out. I need to get in there and fix the water, and then I'm gonna put the trees back. So, all at my expense. Any questions?
Hold on.
Okay.
I'm going to run the meeting. All right. Any other questions from the board? I was going to ask one. Oh, Mr. Spees.
I'm just wondering, in the staff comments, it says there's no hardship demonstrated by the applicant. It looks like he has a lot of hardship to me. Huh? Wouldn't you say, Ms. Lambert?
He's given a lot more explanation, I would say.
Okay, so you do see some. All right, okay.
Oh, this is my first rodeo. I was unaware of how this process works, but here we are.
I recognize myself, and I was just, are you, staff's comment has in here some kind of timeline and date to do this? What's your
I mean, you know, everything takes forever these days. And you can't get any people to do work or materials and everything. I mean, you know, I don't know what you guys seem as reasonable. I have I'm planning on finishing the clearing, most of it, in July. Then I have to apply for the pond permit, get with the civil engineer so he can formulate the drainage and all that documentation and paperwork. Then I have to find somebody to do the dirt work. And then I have to get this thing to settle to see what the water is going to do. And then I can come back in there and replant it. So I don't know how long that's going to take. 1.5 years, 2 years?
That'd be a little long. What are you thinking? What does the staff think?
Well, actually, the way he's stating it is pretty much accurate as far as timing to get everything done. So, I mean, if the board doesn't have any objection, I don't have any objections to grant the 1.5 years or 2 years, because it's, by the time he applies for the several permits, the pond and everything, it might take.
Ms. Thomas is, and I'm nodding in approval.
And I'm just going to say, Ms. Thomas, he could, at that point in time, ask for an extension if necessary. I mean, you know, I don't think that's going to be an issue. Just, I think it's a good idea, like you said, to keep a timeline going, though, you know. So.
All right. I think everybody's been recognized. I'll entertain a motion.
Okay, well, I'll do it. Mr. Chairman, in case number 2022-2890, I make a motion that we accept the request as submitted.
Subject to?
Subject to the 18 months.
To the board's recommendation of a timeline being
timeline.
provided
Yes.
and monitored.
Yes.
Is it 18 months?
If that, is that, you feel comfortable with 18 months?
I'm fine.
Okay, then I'll amend that to read 18 months.
18 months.
With the possibility of a extension if necessary.
So we have a motion. I need a second. Got a second from Ms. Thomas to approve the variance with the timeline restriction. Any other comment? Seeing none, please vote with your screen.
All in favor, motion carries.
Motion was approved unanimously. Right there.
Just give me a call.
Okay, last case for today. BOA case number 2904. Request by applicant in an A4 single-family residential zoning district for a reduction of the required rear yard setback from 25 feet to 18 feet. The property is located at 50501 Bell Point Loop, Madisonville, Louisiana. The applicant is Randy J. Hess. Staff comments, please.
The objective of the request is to allow for an approximately 20-foot addition to an existing single-family residence. The addition will consist of an attached covered outdoor patio and kitchen. The requested variance is a personal preference rather than a hardship.
Please state your name and address and add anything that you would like to on this case.
Yes, my name is Randy Hess. I live at 501 Bell Point Loop. I am requesting a variance to put an outdoor kitchen. The reason for adding it to my house is, as you can see from the pictures, when you're coming down the street, my house is the first thing you see when you get to our pond. I have a fountain behind my house. It's not, an average, I guess, retention pond. It's a nice pond. So I live on the corner of the house, in the street. My neighbors, I have one neighbor to the west, and my closest neighbor is across the street. So they have letters approving of the variance. So I hope I can get the board's approval as well.
Would you say, did I miss that? Say that again. What was, you got the homeowners association approval?
Yes.
I just saw it. Anyone have any questions for Mr. Hess? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion on this variance request.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry.
Mr. Place.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, in BOA case number 2904, I'd like to make a motion to approve the variance request. And I will say this, just as an addition to that, I don't see here again where it presents a problem for any of the neighbors. The homeowners association, it's a big plus when you have that blessing. So that's my motion to approve as submitted.
We have a motion by Mr. Blige to approve the request for variance as submitted. Do I see a second? Second. Got a second from Ms. Thomas. We have a motion and a second. Any other comments? Please vote with your screen.
All in favor?
Unanimous approval. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was the last case. How about old business? I think everybody saw my email that said we got our after the fact fees increased at last Thursday's council meeting at 2:00 in the morning, and let the minutes show that Miss Emily got me moved up. Otherwise, it'd have been 3 in the morning. And the gentleman in the back was there the whole time to support us and protect us. Any other old business? What we got on new business?
Approximately 3 more cases plus the one that's been postponed.
So we're looking at 4 cases in July. The meeting, I believe, is on July the 7th.
July 5th.
July 5th. So it's it's 5th, the day after July the 4th. I will make every effort to be present. I don't know where I'll be. But thank you all for your attendance. And I would like to to recognize Mr. Swindell was here with me till 2 o'clock, and Mr. Ross Liner was here. He stayed with us until the wee hours of the morning.
I'd like to say thank you to the chairman for staying up to represent our board, and we appreciate what you do to support what we do, so thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Thomas. And Ms. Thomas sent me quite a nice email to that effect. Thank you. How about a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So moved. We are in adjournment.
Sign the
Oh.
minutes.
I am confused. I'm going to ask Mr. Blosh and Mr. Swindell.